So I've been thinking a lot lately about how we think about and represent politics. We tend to think about and describe politics as if they were a line. Conservative on the right, liberal on the left. And that's what politics are, if you're a child. This view of politics is a big part of why our political climate is so hostile right now. This is a tug of war. You're on one side of the rope and the enemy is on the other. You have to pull as hard as you can or you'll lose everything. This is the kind of thinking that leads people to the conclusion that all liberals are communists or that all conservatives are fascists. And that's just so childish. People are more complicated than this. Reality is more complicated than this. So let's grow up, shall we? Alright, so instead of thinking about politics as a line, we've got two lines, a quadrant of political ideology. And each of those quadrants represents a category of political value. You've got your conservative, your libertarian, your liberal, and your totalitarian, on two axes of economic and social freedom. And this is better, but there still seem to be a few problems with this. It's still very easy to imagine that you're in a constant tug of war with the other quadrants. Sure, conservative is closer to libertarian and liberal is closer to libertarian than either conservative or liberal are to each other, but there's still this constant tug of war that you want to pull things further and further into your quadrant if you happen to be a conservative or a liberal or a libertarian or a totalitarian. Furthermore, this idea that conservative is its own quadrant seems strange to me. The definition of conservative is maintaining the status quo. I mean, sure, politically in America, we've defined conservative to mean a certain kind of thing. High in economic freedom, low in social freedoms. But that's not what the word conservative really means when we say it or when we hear it. Conservative means maintaining the status quo. Conservative means avoiding too much change too fast. That's conservative. So for me, when I think about politics, conservative is in the middle. I talked about this more in my video in defense of conservative, but basically, if conservative is the status quo, then progressive is anything that seeks to change the status quo. Progressive means change away from the status quo in a direction, in any number of directions, because there are a nearly unlimited number of ways that you can move away from the status quo. You can move towards adherence to fundamentalist religious principles, towards a strong and secure central state, or towards liberty, or towards caring deeply for people and their welfare. Now, some people will define some of these directions as regressive, but that assumes that possibility space is linear, that like the first graph, you're either moving forwards or backwards. And that's nonsense. Possibilities are limitless. This isn't a one-dimensional graph or even a two-dimensional graph. This is a multi-dimensional possibility space with ideologies pulling on it from all different directions. Pulling on what? On the status quo. Pulling on what we have, where we are now. That's conservative. It isn't an ideological space of its own. It isn't the quadrant of a graph. You aren't really more or less conservative because conservative is singular. It's what we have now. Conservative, the status quo, is the anchor for all the other possible directions that we could go in because they extend from here, from this moment that we find ourselves in. And there are some things that you might notice about this way of representing politics. The difference between 2 points, say, over here and over here, determines how extreme those two people see each other. When you stay close to the status quo, it's easier to relate and easier to find compromises with other people that are relatively conservative. But the further you move away from the status quo, the bigger the space you occupy, the more extreme your views can be. And when you're way out here in the extreme, not anchored to the way things currently are, everyone else looks extreme to you because nearly every other possibility is far away from where you are, way out here. Our current political climate is an example of this. We've all somehow come to agree that America sucks. It's too racist, or too PC, or too in debt, or too heartless, or too unequal, or too regulated. Even the Republican Party, the party that's supposed to represent the conservatives, the call for caution, the anchor for progressive ideology, has become a party of radical progressive ideology. If that weren't the case, the current nominee's motto wouldn't be make America great again, it would be keep America great. We've basically all reached the point where we're moving further and further from the status quo, and so we begin to see everyone else as more and more extreme. Ask yourself this question. Can you think of a single candidate, or even imagine a single candidate, that a majority of Americans could actually agree on? Is there any possible candidate in our current climate that a huge group of people wouldn't label an extremist? It seems to me that we are all moving further and further from the concept of conservative. And there's a lot to unpack about that. What's causing this movement towards radically progressive ideology? Why is it so much easier to agree about what to oppose than it is to agree about what to promote or create? And what does all of this say for our future? But all of those questions are for another day. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about anything I've said, or you like this video and would like me to continue to explore this topic, please leave a comment or like the video, and have a wonderful day.